Good morning, Realtors. Today is April 3rd, and welcome to our inaugural GADcast, brought to you by the North Shore-Barrington Association of Realtors. My name is Roth, and I'm your local government affairs director with NSBAR. GADcast is our new podcast to update you on what's happening in the world of realtor advocacy. For those of you listening live, you can email me questions during our live broadcast at jroth@illinoisrealtors.org, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can while we're live. Now, despite all the stay-at-home orders and widespread shutdowns, realtor advocates are as active as ever. And my very special guest for this inaugural podcast is Miss Julie Sullivan, Senior Director of Legislative and Political Affairs with Illinois Realtors. Julie is not only one of the best realtor advocates in the country, she's also one of the busiest, but she's made some time to chat with us this morning. Julie, welcome to the inaugural podcast.
Thanks so much, Joe.
So even though the legislature isn't meeting right now, you and the rest of the Springfield team have been very busy. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on?
Well, busy is should be underscored. It's been really interesting time for all of us, and I have to just give a lot of shout out and credit to our whole team, the Illinois Realtors, legal, our direction from Gary Clayton and Jeff Baker, Kristen Butcher, legal and the communications team have just been phenomenal. I'm sure that everyone, and if you don't, I would recommend every day check the Illinois Realtors website, the COVID-19 page, because that page is updated sometimes every day with information as it becomes available. Joe, when we first heard that there may be some executive orders coming down, we looked at the Homeland Security's page to see their federal page, to see categories of what they may deem essential services, and started thinking right away of where we would fit in. And so way before the governor put pen to paper, we, through Jeff Baker and Gary Clayton, worked with the director of real estate and really started to focus on making sure that real estate was deemed an essential business and operation. And we really stressed with them that real estate is so important to the economy, and realtors need to do their jobs and ensure that these real estate transactions could continue, not only for the economy, but for our members. I think it was important is that we had such a great relationship with the department, also reached out to the administration. So the first executive order, as everyone knows, was issued. The stay-at-home order included the essential businesses listed. That was issued on Friday, March 20th. It seems so long ago now, but it's really fairly recent. And it was for the time frame of Saturday, the 21st through April 7th. April 1st, the governor issued an extension executive order that extended it through the end of April, as everyone knows. And in that extension executive order, he did make some additional changes, and a couple of his state agencies, not only IDFPR, but DECIO, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, provided some additional guidance. And I would direct you to our site. You can read that guidance. But probably a couple of the big changes that were made from the first was more guidance from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity of what is and isn't allowed under real estate being an essential service. And the biggest one was they clarified that there should be no open houses, that showings of occupied rental properties were not permitted, but that you could still do showings of vacant or owner-occupied units if necessary and scheduled in advance. But again, practicing social distancing, doing all the CDC requirements, and limiting it to no more than 4 people, including the realtor. Obviously, they stress that virtual showings are preferred. Then the IDFPR also put out an additional guidance document that is extremely helpful, and those documents I think should be reviewed or just bookmarked so you can refer to them often, because you may have clients asking the same question. I've had just friends call and ask me because they're in the process of properties and thinking of listing and things of that nature. Another big change that was done in an executive order, also related to real estate, was the executive order that was issued on the 26th dealing with notaries and allowing electronic notary. Again, that was slightly modified in the extension executive order to add overnight mail as in a way you can get the documents to the proper county office. And so overnight mail, fax, email are all included. The executive order on notary, again, is very clearly explained on our website, and I would recommend that you go there. The notaries in this state are not regulated by IDFPR, they're regulated by the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State has put out guidance as well. We have a lot of guidance these days, and it's because we are all facing something we've never thought we'd ever face. So, but the bottom line is there is a two-way communication, audiovisual communication technology used by the parties in notary. Notary has to be present in Illinois at the time of the notarization, and you have to video record all of those interactions. The signer has to show the witness each document that they're signing and tell the witness what each document is. And then you can transmit those, as I mentioned, overnight mail, fax, or email, but on the same day that it was signed. So I would point out that this executive order will expire, and Illinois needs to update their statutes to allow electronic or remote online notarization to continue in Illinois. We are one of 23 states that, or 27 states, excuse me, that don't currently allow that. And there are two bills pending in the Senate. I'm guessing that they may be elevated to deemed an essential bill to pass this year because I think everyone has recognized how important those were. I mean, the governor issuing an executive order underscores that alone. But we are continuing to reach out to all of the caucuses in the General Assembly to try to keep them informed as to what we deem as essential or not essential to pass in this very strange and different session. We still don't have an indication of when and how they may come back. But every indication I'm getting is that if they do come back, whether they figure out a way to do that remotely, we don't have any experience with that, obviously, or if they bring them back in smaller numbers, or the Senate or the House at one time, whatever they decide, it's going to be an extremely shortened session. I've heard some people say 3 to 5 days, do the budget, do all these emergency issues that have arisen, but that it be focused on health and safety. So that's how, as best we know on those issues. I would point out a couple other things on our website that you may be of interest. I was contacted by the Illinois Housing Development Authority, and apparently, you know how the telephone game or the rumor mill gets going, and there were some lenders out there that were telling realtors that IDA had suspended all its assistance programs. That is not true. IDA is running up and running, and by emails and phone, and so those programs have not been suspended. So if you're hearing that, please be advised that that's just a rumor. We have on our website, again, the COVID-19 page, we have information directly from IDA that if you need to print it out and show it to a lender, that'd be a good idea. I've also reached out to the Illinois Bankers Association and the community bankers to make sure that they're aware that IDA has not shut down any of its operations. So,
and Julie, I'll say that's such an important thing that's happening, out of Springfield and with Illinois Realtors, is addressing and really getting good information out. And I think NSBAR is a part of that as well, in helping provide good information that's relevant to realtors. With so much information. I think I've received an email about COVID-19 from anyone that's ever received my email before. I think I may have ordered a sandwich at Jersey Mike's once, and they have a statement on COVID-19 that they've had to email me at least 3 times.
Exactly.
So there's such an information overload. And I think it's super important that everyone's aware of the work that you guys are doing in Springfield to represent realtor interests and provide quality information. And this information about IDA is just one example of how we're getting to the relevant and appropriate information. So it's a trusted source of information through all this. So Julie, thank you for that.
And one thing we really do and pride ourselves in doing is double checking, triple checking, making sure that anything that we put on our site is accurate. And that's why we like to post from the regulators, their actual documents. So that it's not extrapolated information, it's directly from the source, and it will provide you the best guidelines. And I think the legal and the CEO team has just been amazing in getting that, and the communications and getting it posted so quickly. But it does change a lot, and I think we're just going to have to get used to this for a while. But the best thing we can do for you is to provide the best information that we can provide to you.
Absolutely, Julie, and thank you for that. Now, I think you're pretty used to a different kind of springtime, because for a few years now, you have been representing realtor interests every spring with the legislature in session. And while every session is unique and has its own issues, there's a certain way in which you can represent realtor interests. But these are pretty unusual times. So how do you, through all this, how are you able to effectively represent realtor interests like you are?
That's a really good question, and it's so true. I mean, I've always said, this is my 31st year with the Realtors, and every year has been different, but there's been no year like this. I have been in constant contact with colleagues in the affiliated part of the real estate transactions, the title insurance, the attorneys, the bankers, that whole group. We try to meet or at least email continually, especially on this notary language that was coming down. And also, I think it's good to share information. And we're fortunate that we have the local GAD program in place, so we can find out boots on the ground what's happening with locals, because that's another really important part of the whole essential governmental and business operations that we had covered in our executive order, is that local governments are also deemed essential to making sure that every other business can get their work done. So, but it's reaching out, it's being flexible, certainly. It's webinars, seminars, podcasts. I mean, we're lucky, I guess, that, we are lucky that technology has allowed us to keep current and active and reaching out in so many ways. I think when I first started, that sounds like a geezer phrase to start, but we could not have been as effective and not have gotten the information as quickly as you're getting it. So it's sometimes, I know it feels like we're pushing out a lot of information, and it may be information overload sometimes, but that's the best way that you can answer questions in your business and answer questions that I'm sure your members are getting from clients as well.
Yeah, and I think that's another point here as well is that the relationships that you have cultivated over the years have been really helpful. Having good relationships with, not just the state representatives and state senators, and not just when they're in Springfield, but rather as an organization, we have these relationships, and you personally have relationships with them, with all of the state level departmental staff and leadership there. And I think those relationships as well have been a big, having those relationships existing is a really great way to make sure that you can work through these crises.
Absolutely. I cannot stress enough how important it has been that we have those relationships, that you can text a legislator or just call them on their cell and find out what's, if you're hearing rumors. And I think just as I started out with, the great relationship that we have established, working through our rewrite with the IDFPR and the administration really, really went a long way in getting that executive order written so well, getting the guidance from IDFPR, and then just that constant communication. It happens all the time, and you can't just start those when it's a crisis because you may not be, top of the line. They know that, and I think we pride ourselves on all levels of government providing the facts to elected officials and to regulators and true impacts of what actions will mean to the practice and to people throughout the state of Illinois. And those aren't done overnight. It takes a lot of work. I mean, we should be getting ready right now for Capitol Conference. Obviously, everything's on hold there, but that's just a great example of us having those state legislative contacts in place, statewide coverage with our GADs, and there's just constant communication and reliability. They know that when we tell them or they ask us something, if we don't know the answer, we'll get them the answer. And that's just invaluable, especially in times like this.
All right, absolutely. And you hit on this a little bit before, and just want to see if you have any other thoughts. But the legislature is obviously going to reconvene at some point this year in some way. Do you have any other expectations of that you would expect or you'd like to share, or is it clearly a pure guessing game at this point?
I think it's a pure guessing game at this point. I think what we first have to get to the end is we have to get to the peak of this current pandemic, and we don't know when those dates are. I think the governor has been and his whole team have been great in having those daily press briefings. As sobering as the news is on the rates of infection and people that have lost their lives and the tragedy of that, but at least we feel like we are being kept in the loop as well. And the General Assembly, honestly, like I said, is dealing with something they've never even contemplated before. Now, I know Senate President Harmon mentioned there's something in the Constitution that in act of God, as it were, like a natural disaster, that they can come up with some other options or some other ways of meeting. But I tell you, all I can say is when we know, you'll know. And but as I mentioned, I think most observers think that if they do come back and when they do come back, it will be a fairly limited agenda. And that's why we're trying to get our message out to the caucuses now of what we think they should do, and also importantly, what they should not do. So, and it is a unique situation, and one we'll just have to remain fluid on and keep you posted.
That's great information. Thank you, Julie. And as a reminder to our audience as well, is that, you know, you can get good, reliable, realtor-specific information from several different places as we go through this COVID-19 situation. Both North Shore-Barrington Association and Illinois Realtors have up-to-date information and resources on their webpage specific to these issues. NSBAR.org/coronavirus and IllinoisRealtors.org/COVID-19.
And National,
and with that,
National also has a page as well, Joe.
Absolutely. There is also information from National Association of Realtors, and we will be linking those things both through NSBAR and Illinois Realtors websites, or you can go directly to NAR's website. Julie, I really want to thank you for not only taking some time to chat with us today, because I know you're super busy, but just for all the work you and everyone in Springfield are doing to represent realtor interests and keep business up and running while we work through this pandemic. So thank you, Julie.
Joe, it's my pleasure. And please, if anyone has specific questions or you need more information from me, please send me an email. I am checking emails constantly from my home office. And everyone, please be safe and be healthy and be happy.
All right. Thank you again, Julie, and stay well. All right. And, you know, Julie and Illinois Realtors team has clearly been working hard to ensure that you as realtors can continue to offer your services to your clients, albeit in a modified way. But understanding how to modify has been a really critical bit of information they've been able to provide. Similarly, local GADs across the state have been working to make sure you have access to local government services that you need to provide service to your clients. And if you think through the touch points you have with local government, they're really a critical point in the process. And as Julie alluded to, it's where the rubber meets the road on a lot of property transactions. Getting to closing can involve local transfer taxes. Some towns have pre-sale inspections, and every town has some sort of utility transfer process you need to work through. We're very fortunate here in the North Shore and Barrington's communities that local governments are being very cooperative with us. In my conversations and contacts with them, they are offering most, if not all, of these services, but again, in a modified way. So as you have transactions that are coming to close, make sure and touch base with those local governments sooner rather than later. I know transfer stamps, for one point, they're taking a lot longer to process. In some towns, they're just taking more time because they have fewer resources themselves. So try to plan ahead. If you do have issues in these processes, call me, email me, text me, whatever it is where we at NSBAR can be of support to you. And with that, I think we'll wrap up our inaugural GADcast. I want to thank again Julie Sullivan and Bradley Laberman and Jim Schiffelbein, our amazing marketing team at NSBAR. They've put this together, and I think it's going to be a great resource for us in the future. And with that, thank you, everyone, and stay well.